you'd like to take some notes, go ahead and do so. I'm going to emphasize some important points. For those of you who are also involved in this webinar, you'll have a chance to have a recording of this as well, I understand. Is that correct?
Yes, that's
Great.
right.
Okay. So the question at hand is the differences and the similarities. Selling or prospecting to one-on-one or to a group. One major similarity is that really you're having a conversation with an audience. And that is a key point. And so you're not blasting all kinds of ideas, talking at them. It's very conversational. It's very one-on-one. When you have the privacy and the intimacy or the personalized space that you create when you're doing a one-on-one, it is the same idea speaking to a group. The person sitting in the back, the 40th row of that audience, there may be 1,000 people in that audience, should feel that you're speaking to him or her on an intimate basis, on a personalized basis, as though every single individual in that group should feel the same way. And so it's an attitude, really. I have had to, in my coaching, have a speaker, and as a student of public speaking, approach an audience with the idea of looking at them individually as though they're having coffee, a fireside chat, having coffee, because people will buy from an individual they feel they can feel comfortable with. And I think the comfort level is a very important point of the law of attraction. If you're comfortable with a speaker and the speaker is comfortable in helping you feel comfortable with them, it allows that trust factor to be there as well. Now that is a very important similarity between both. There is a difference, however. And John, I think that the major difference is actually what we're really doing in presentation, and that is that we're not necessarily selling right there. What we're really doing when we present to a group is we're providing them with a purpose of more interest and more involvement in what we're selling rather than selling it. We're actually cultivating a reach with an audience. And so you need to really look at that, and I think most groups want to find out about you, and they want to know about you. And I know me, for example. When I have somebody that I'm listening to and I'm sitting there in that seat, I'm asking myself one question. Can I trust this guy? Can I trust this lady? Can I respect, is there enough respect here for what they do? Is that speaker providing enough credibility, enough passion for what they do? Do I have enough confidence during this presentation to know that they can get this job done that they say they can get done? And that's what I'm thinking.
Yeah.
You know, and I think most of you are thinking that. Put yourself in an audience position and recognize that that is really what's going on. And so, I mean, that follows really the three things that we must really answer before we even present. Because there are some questions that I think everybody needs to answer prior to even preparing a speech for sales purposes, or not. It doesn't necessarily have to be for sales. It could be basically for a debriefing. It could be for maybe to provide information. But we still have to answer these three questions. And so the very first question that we have to answer is, what is the purpose of the speech? Why am I here? Why am I here? So, you know, if you're going to prepare and present points to provide enough information to your audience so that they have a heightened sense of understanding and interest to attract them to your product or service, you better answer that question first. And I will bring 4 different types of purposes to the fore here. And you have a choice, and you can use all 4 of these if you'd like, but there's 4 major purposes of why we do present. And if you're really off the target of these purposes, you might get yourself into a bit of a swamp. You know, because if you're there just to entertain and not provide enough information, and that audience is really seeking information, that you're not hitting your mark. Right. Number 1, there are 4 purposes for you to make a decision on what your purpose is. Is it primarily to inform? Are you giving them a briefing-oriented type of presentation where there's material that is being prepared, not to overload your audience, you're really there to demonstrate key points and show examples and illustrations of the points you're making. Is it to persuade or reassure? Is that your primary purpose? Which essentially is more inclined to direct your audience to buy into some kind of product or buy into some kind of service. Or it might even be just an idea that you're trying to get to sell. Okay? That might be it. You're trying to sell an idea, maybe internally to your staff. But seminar promotion and prospecting falls really into this category. A call to action, for example, is another purpose. It involves inspiration and motivation. And how do you move an audience to do something or get involved? There are many nonprofits that need to sell the ideas of their causes, and that's fundraising. Political activism is another one. Volunteer activities fall into that category. What's your call to action? Okay? So the last purpose, of course, is to entertain. Now, I think entertainment should be involved in every single possible purpose that any speaker has. But for the sheer audience enjoyment, this is a purpose, of course, in conjunction with the three prior purposes I just went over, which is to inform, to persuade, and to call to action. But it's there to lighten up the presentation. I kind of call entertainment like yeast. If you're selling and you're too serious, people aren't going to buy from somebody too serious. All right? You've got to lighten it up. There's got to be some sense of humor there. And the most purest form of a speech or presentation in terms of entertainment is like a celebrity roast or a toast at some special event. But I like to think of these four different purposes as being all sort of integrated together. And you can decide which one of those purposes really are key. Why are you there? And I like the idea of every sales presentation to have a concise statement of what their purpose is before they actually begin to prepare or organize. And you can either be something of this sort. Let's say you're selling financial services, or you're selling insurance, or you're selling real estate, or whatever presentation it might be. Maybe it's something intangible or non-intangible. A purpose could be stated as something like this: to provide sufficient information and understanding of an investment strategy so as to increase interest and involvement in my product and service and ensure the confidence of my audience. That could be a purpose right there. Now, the second thing you've got to answer that I think one has got to keep into consideration of the three questions that you answer is, who is my audience? Who is my audience? If you're off the target of who your audience is, then you're talking the wrong message to the wrong group, and you're going to alienate your presentation. You need to know, number one, what do they want to know? What are their needs? What do they want? What do they need and want are two separate things. What are they interested in learning about? I mean, you might consider doing a bit of a demographic breakdown of that audience, but if you have some quirky, vague, confused idea of that audience, you're going to have a problem organizing your speech properly for that sales presentation. Number three, what is my product? Now, I got to tell you, this is the one that gets the most misunderstood. You better know what your product of your presentation is, not the product that you are promoting. What is the product of your presentation? What am I having my audience walk away doing? Now, that is, in all intents and purposes, the call to action. I want you all to think about this. You're spending 20 minutes, maybe 20 minutes to 30 minutes, maybe 45 minutes, depending on the type of presentation it is, and you're building credibility during this time period. You're getting them to understand who you are, why you, what is the difference between you and your competitor, what is the benefit to your audience, and at the end, if you don't have your audience doing something, you've just lost all of the the resources you've built in that presentation, and it's going nowhere. This is the toughest I find with my clients, having to work really diligently, and we do a lot of skill building exercises and scenarios in my coaching studio to really get this down, because this is where your conversion ratios are high between your attendees and your qualified prospects making appointments for you. What is my product? A product is what results from your presentation. It is your call to action, and it's your job and responsibility as a presenter to motivate your audience, to get them to commit to one of perhaps several call to actions in your presentation. And most times it is not to sell them right there on the spot. It may be to take them to the website. Perhaps it's an entry on an opt-in email where they can get a free ebook. Perhaps it's a video that you can provide them with, or they can order. Perhaps it's the next event you would like to have them look at. But most importantly, if you're selling the product or service, ladies and gentlemen, what are we really doing? We're making an appointment. And that in itself is a great measurement of the quality of your presentation. How many appointments were made? What is the percentage of appointments to people attending your presentation? That's a pretty darn good statistic to have. So I think I've given the three basic things, John, to help our audience to answer those three questions. You know, what is my purpose? In other words, why am I here? Who is my audience? Really breaking it down in terms of what they need to know, what they need to be interested in order to keep them moving through that whole process of the sales presentation. And last but certainly not least, what is my product? What is the call to action? And what is the commitment I want my audience to motivate toward in terms of the end result of my presentation?
Good. Those are great points. Joe, you've come up with 7 mistakes to avoid in presenting. How did you come up with 7, and what are they?
Well, these are really a reference list that you can be able to make note of when you start either tape recording your speech and listening back, which I love to have my clients do, and that is either on video or audio. It's a great way to quality control your speech. But these 7 primarily are the pitfalls. And throughout my research and over the years of working, I've narrowed it down to these basic 7. And so number 1, and this is primarily what I went over in the 3 basic questions you have to answer is, if you have an unclear purpose, you're going to be driving down a path that leads nowhere. It's like the bridge to nowhere. You know, yeah. And so you get the idea that, you know, a purpose for a speech has to be able to arrive at its intended destination. So you say, well, why am I here? Answer that question. And I always love to have presenters, particularly in sales, is to write that concise statement of what that purpose is at the top of their presentation. And it really dictates, the purpose dictates how you organize your speech and how it should be delivered. The second is failing to meet the needs of your audience, of course, and write down specifically the demographic of your audience. We made a little bit of, put a little bit of attention on that in the last slide about audience. And it's very, very clear. If you don't know the needs of your audience, you're not going to hit your mark and provide them with adequate information. So you're going about trying to acquire information in preparing that is either going to go over their heads, it's going to be inappropriate, or it doesn't quite hit the mark. Number 3, of course, an unknown or unnamed product of your speech. I'd write that down. What do you want as a product of your speech? I want my audience to make an appointment with me so I can interview them and assess by a 10-point complimentary evaluation. And I'm going to offer that free so they come in. That is a call to action. Now, there might be a number of them, but you want to offer something. and to at least measure the quality of your presentation by the reaches toward that call to action. Number 4, lack of organization. Now this is one that if you have the first 3 steps in, it makes your job a lot easier to present to a group of prospects because, number 1, you organize your speech. Pay particular attention to this, ladies and gentlemen. If you are not organizing your speech to pose the problem of your audience, there's nothing for them to face as a painful, problematic condition. There's got to be something that you're offering that resolves some kind of painful or problematic condition. Your speech is organized to pose that problem, to get them to understand the pain of that problem, and the next step of it, of course, is the solution to that problem. And that really is the body of your speech in terms of moving an audience to reach for your product or service. If you don't have that organized so it's smooth and it's flowing, it's a pitfall and a blunder, and it needs to be rectified. The other one here, oh man, this one gets violated so much, and it's information overload. Information overload. Well, one of the most important words in presentation is edit. E-D-I-T. Edit. Make your points as concise as possible. Do not add filler to make up for the time. Time does not dictate your presentation. Your end result does. Okay? There have been many mistakes about fillers and overload, but information overload is one of the ingredients of monotony and boredom. And that's the primary disease of public speaking or presentations, never be boring. And if there's one thing boring, and that is unnecessary, contrived or perfunctory, there's a word for you, perfunctory, needless, going through the motions, words or phrases that mean nothing. Now, edit. The way you do this is, open up your speech with a wonderful attention-getting opening. Put some points together after that. There's the opening, the body, and the end of your speech. I suppose we should talk about that, shouldn't we?
Yeah.
Because this step of 4 and 5 on these mistakes. If you organize your speech with an opening, and then, of course, the next step is the body of your speech, which should have major points. Mm-hmm. These major points should flow one to the other. And like I mentioned, it should be, what's the problem? What's the solution? And have your audience understand the uniqueness of your solution. Why should they choose you? So that you're editing your speech only to move them through those points with a lot of examples. That's the next step in number 7. Number 7 is insufficient support. So that when you've got the body of your speech with major points you're making, let's say it's about you're offering the software, and it's a software program that helps people to increase the efficiency of their business. Okay? Mm-hmm. Well, so you're making a point about chaos and noise in business. Well, offer some support. If you are just making points and you're not offering some kind of documentation, you're not offering some kind of facts and figures, let's say you're saying there's a lot of inefficiency in business. It has been proven throughout the last 20 years that if you become more efficient, you'll increase your profitability factor by 40%. Well, okay, that's kind of a light, not really much of a heavy support. It said 40%, but I'm in the audience, and you know what I'm saying? Prove it. Right? Prove it. So you're offering support for one reason alone, and this is so important in sales, and that's credibility. If you're making a point, back it up so that you can make your points more believable and more credible. For example, there has been, just the example of software, right? It has been shown that if you increase efficiency in an office, the end result of that is that you will increase profitability 40%. By a study by Dr. Howard Jackson of the University of Virginia's MBA department, he wrote an article in the Journal of Financial Stability, and that journal was dated October 7th, 2011. He states, I quote, now what I just did there is offer you several support points. I offered you an authority that I cited. I offered you a journal with dates of the magazine. I'm offering you also a quote. When people don't offer enough support, it's a major blunder from in terms of their credibility factor to their audience. Make sure you've got sufficient support. Vocal monotony, sloppiness of speech. Wow. Let's look at that word monotony, ladies and gentlemen. Monotony is a flat, uninteresting, robotic tone and attitude, both vocally and body language-wise. Okay, but in this case, we're talking about speech. So if we were to look at the opposite of monotony, we're talking about variety. Variety. How do we vary our speech? Now, this is a bit more about dynamics. Okay? This is about dynamics in terms of how we come across to an audience, how we attract by the sense of that charismatic stage presence, for example. But you can vary pitch, inflection, you can vary volume, you can emphasize things with variety, you can vary your attitude about things, use emotion. But it's very important to ensure that your speech is articulate and you're being understood. Okay? So in that case, the idea, of course, is take these 7, and I hope that I gave you a bit of a general idea of why these 7 are important. The key here in terms of summarizing this whole thing for you would be, these are the 7 most flagrant reasons that an audience will be distracted from your message and bail out, okay? And you want to be able to move an audience through these steps of your opening, the body of your speech, and the call to action, so that what you are presenting to them as a product or service takes center stage, not the distractions or the mistakes.
Great. All right. We're talking about speaking to groups for sales purposes. How do you motivate an audience to reach for your product or service?
Now, motivation is a good word for it, John. I think when you are talking about sales, and all of you listening right now, I'd like you to get this concept of sales, because if somebody is not willing to be helped, if you have a prospect not interested in getting some kind of help, you're not going to sell them. And you can say that they may be interested, but their interest needs to be helped along. And in a lot of cases, there are people that come to audiences, seminars, workshops, with a very timid, hesitant approach. They're sitting in their seats, and they made up their minds they're not going to buy anything, right?
Right.
You know, and at the end of it, some of them walk out without buying anything. Some people walk out far more interested and involved. They want to know more. That's a good product. And some people are very enamored with it, and they were pleasantly surprised, and they'll go to the back of the room and purchase materials, or they'll find someone to talk to make an appointment with. But motivation is interesting. You've got many types of people that are part of your group when you're presenting to them. And from a sales standpoint, you really want one thing to happen. You want to increase their reach to accept help. Because after all, what is help? You know?
Right.
I mean, help is what sales is all about. This is what we do in sales.
Yeah.
If we're selling something that doesn't help people, you're in the wrong business. So you're doing some disservice to people. Right? Every product or service that we sell should help somebody. So think about it in terms of, well, you have an audience there. Are they going to accept your help? If you look at it like, am I worthy of them picking me to help them? How am I earning my credits here? Am I earning respect credits in this presentation? Am I earning trust credits in this presentation? Are they confident that I can do this job? Do I have enough credibility in this presentation for them to decide that they'd like to come talk to me? Am I showing enough authority or expertise? These are all great traits. Everybody listening, these are your qualities you've got to come across with in your presentations. Credibility, you care. Do you show you care? Are you caring? Do you show you're concerned? Are you sincere? These are all great qualities. Expertise, authority. You might think, wow, I got to bundle all those great qualities up into one speech. Well, I got to tell you, if you love your work and you really believe in your product or service and you stand by it, that is naturally going to come across your presentation. It really will. And the only thing that really I work on with my clients is to remove the resistances to that in an audience situation, because my clients really do love their work and they do believe in it. But in my scenarios with my clients, I have to get them comfortable so that it comes across. You see?
Right.
And so what we're doing with motivating an audience is like you're letting your own value, your own core values come across so you can express them outwardly. And, that takes some scenarios to go over. You want to give enough presentations so that you feel comfortable. You might want to give those presentations in the privacy of your own office or home with the do not disturb sign on your door, with a camera running, and you're looking at it and going, I just need to relax a little bit more. I need to put the attention on my audience more. Because honestly, ladies and gentlemen, it's not the substance of the communication as much as it is the emotion and sincerity and all those qualities that you evoke during that presentation. And my job as a coach is to unleash that so that you're not introverted and not looking inward and so nervous that those qualities don't come out. And so I say that in sales, really what you're doing is you're reaching into your audience and you're moving your audience throughout the body of that speech, from the opening through the body, and you're building credibility and you're building expertise and authority and the hopes and trusts of your audience. So by the end of it, you're giving them an instruction of what to do, which is your call to action. There's two types of people that I narrowed it down audiences-wise. You want to make this easy for yourselves, everybody? People are motivated by pleasure, right? Or they're motivated by pain, right? And you'll find that's the reason why an example of this would be, I want to be able to make money so I can enjoy the world and make the world a better place, and I want to accumulate wealth. Let's say if you're in the financial services field, or let's say you're an attorney and or you're a political candidate, and you're talking to an audience. Why? So that the world can be we can be more free. If it's a political candidate, or if it's pain, it's we have to preserve our borders. We have to secure our nation. That's that's motivation by pain. If it's in the investment field, we've got to safeguard our money. We've got to ensure that we are resolute in the conservative approach to our financial situation. That's motivation by pain. If it's financial motivation by pleasure, it's I want to build a better world. I want to build properties. I want to start that school that I've always wanted to start. Well, it's pain and it's pleasure, and if you've got a one-on-one in front of you, or if it's a large group, you'll get a sense of what motivates an audience by the general overall is this audience a pain-motivated audience, or is it a pleasure-seeking audience? And you can motivate your audience with that approach by using examples that are more specific to what motivates them to help them. And of course, there's a key one here, and that is, everybody knows this, and you've been told this if you ever sold for a long period of time, and that is emotion. You are presenting to a group. If you don't use emotion in your examples, if you're not at least in your products and services associating what you do and what you provide your clients with in terms of an emotional benefit to them, you're losing your audience. And that is a key element in presentation. You've got to embed in your presentation the emotion that's appropriate to what it is that you're offering them. Are you offering them a solution to a pain-free environment? Are you offering them a solution to greater freedom or the enjoyment of something? Paint the picture. Tell them a story. Stories are awesome. Stories are so personal. They'll increase your credibility factor. They'll increase the emotion factor. I bet right now you're not telling stories in your sales presentations. There's more than one place during your presentation you can tell a damn good story. Tell them a great story. And when you tell the story so that it moves them to feel what you're feeling. Don't tell it like a news anchor man. You know? I tell you what. I mean, you know this, John. I mean, when you tell a story, it's like you want that person to have the feeling like they're sitting on Grandpa's lap.
Right.
Tell me a story, Grandpa. You'll have that audience, and I mean this. This is not to sound manipulative, but I have had people tell me, you've had that audience eating out of your hand. What does that mean? All that means is I endeared them to me a little bit of who I am and what I do, and I attracted them so they can relate. People have to relate to your examples. And everybody loves a story. So emotion is key to motivating people to commit to something. You know? And, you know, everybody's got, you have to write this down. And I think that in the long run, we've got a little bit of chunk of time left, and I'd like to devote this remaining maybe 20 minutes or so to a call to action. Because I believe that for those who are listening, write down right now as you're listening to this, write down, what do you want your audience to do as a result of what you just built in terms of confidence and trust? You've just earned the right to tell them what to do. I always tell people, look, the fact that they're sitting in front of you right now, the fact that the audience is right there in front of that speaker, they're electing you their leader. Lead them. Lead them. Be their leader. You know, they've arrived. They want to know you did your job. You presented your product. You presented the benefits of the product. You've supplied them some personal experiences. They get a sense of your humanity. It's really important, your humanity. You know, and you're building this speech so at the end there is a call to action. Write down right now, everybody, what do you want your audience to do as a result of your presentation? And I say that's a great way to even organize your speech, is by the call to action. What do you want them to commit to? What is it exactly that is the follow-up? It could be more than one, by the way. Give them a choice. You know, I'll be honest with you, at the end of this presentation, at the end of this webinar, you are going to have several choices of a call to action. Okay? And if I've done my job at all, if I've appealed to you in any sense of confidence, authority, expertise, these are great tips, these are great points. Gee, I'd like to talk to Joe a little bit more about what I'm trying to do. You know, my purpose would be to help you with enough understanding of this, with enough tips, so that it increased your reach to accept help, to increase your conversion rates, to get more qualified prospects in front of you so the return of investment is worth it. Now that's my call to action, and I can break that down into a number of different ways. I'll just use myself as an example. Would that be fair?
Sure. That
Okay.
would be fair.
You can go to my website, and you can get a free ebook on public speaking essentials. You can go to the website and order my DVD. That is a call to action, and you can do that to understand 24 different lessons of public speaking on 2 to 3 minute lessons each of that video. It's a 1-hour video. You can make an appointment to come in and get a complimentary assessment on public speaking, and I give you free coaching during that time period. There's lots of ways. You can register for our March 28th event on how to become recognized and as a respected authority in your field. That's March 28th. Now, I just gave you 4 or 5 different call to actions there. And I gave you a sense of what you can do more of so that I can help you and you would accept my help. That to me is what I think the new banner of sales is all about. When you're giving a presentation, you're saying to your audience, I want you to trust me and I want you to feel safe that I can help you. That is really what you're doing when you walk in. Whether it's a boardroom, whether it's a small group gathering, whether it's a networking meeting that you're giving a 20-minute presentation to a group of businesses, or whether it's a keynote address to 1,000 people or more. It's the same. How can I help you? And how can I raise your level of confidence? How could I essentially pose the problem that you're posing and show you that what I'm doing is a confident, trustworthy, respectful solution so you come see me? That's it, ladies and gentlemen. That's pretty much it. And that's really, and I think the bottom line of it, if you were to wrap all of that up and put it in a nice bow around it in a box, the bow is this. The bow is this. Talk to your audience like you're talking to them one-on-one, having a fireside chat over a cup of coffee.
That's great advice, Joe. You know, we've all been in an audience when the question and answer period comes up. And we've all experienced it in a positive way. We've experienced it in a very negative way.
Yep.
I know that you have a very different perspective of what a question and answer period is and how it should be done. Would you share that with our audience?
Let me do this. Let me ask you, John. When you're in an audience and you notice there's a question and answer period, how do you know when it's going well or not? What's your first thought?
Well, certainly if there's participation where people are asking questions, that's a good sign because they're engaged.
Right.
When you still feel a sense that the momentum is building.
Yep.
And therefore this is kind of a crescendo and not the dud that just stopped the flow.
Yeah, we've seen enough of those. Right. And that's a good point. And there's probably one thing to remember, and for those of you who have question and answer periods, and sometimes you don't want a question and answer period, depending on the audience. You want to hold them till after your entire speech is over and people have a chance to maybe collect into smaller groups. That might be even more appropriate. But rule number 1, never, ever, ever. There's 3 nevers, okay? That means like this is big black and bold face, okay? And you want to write this down. Never hold a question and answer period after you are over with your speech. Your question and answer period must be held before you end your speech. And the reason for that is anticlimactic effect at the end. You will have the most incredible conclusion, and a question and answer period will kill it because you have uncontrollable factors in that. You have people that are speaking afterwards, and they can kill the momentum.
Right.
You'll always have a chance. If that momentum or that crescendo, so to speak, is lost during the question and answer period, You always have the chance to rebuild it at the end. You never want to lose your audience to a question and answer period. I think that in that case, control is a very important part of it. In the beginning of your speech, always let the audience know how you want to treat questions and answers. In other words, give them clear directions. Tell them, do you want to entertain questions? You want to hold them off to the end? You want to let them know up front what to expect with a question and answer period. I always like to make sure I don't miss anybody, and there's a justice system in place during a question and answer period. You'll find that many people get upset because the speaker is ignoring somebody in the audience. Never ignore somebody. Always pick questions in order. And make sure that your audience knows that you are a very fair and just person, because a question and answer period can deflate the integrity of your whole presentation to your audience. So, question and answer periods could make or break your speech. I think that there are a few other points that depending on the largeness of your audience, this is key, because I think political candidates sometimes will make this mistake when there's no microphones in the room. I've had a lot of technology people at the top of at a platform stage and working with them, particularly with a slideshow, where you might have no microphone in the audience. You have to repeat the question. So for the sake of the rest of your audience, always repeat the question before answering, so that everybody knows what it is. Anyway, I think there are a lot of violations in question and answer periods. I think probably the biggest violation would be people who try to bluff answering the question when they darn well don't know the answer. Honestly, my first principle in public speaking is you don't fool your audience. Just don't even try to fool them. You don't. You tell the truth. If you don't know the answer, tell them you don't know the answer. I like to defer to somebody in the audience who might be a specialist. So I'm using my leadership role to delegate to somebody in the audience to say, well, Attorney Smith, maybe you have the answer to this, or Dr. Jackson, do you have the answer to this? Well, Professor such and such from the University of South Florida, you probably have dealt with this, maybe you can give the answer to this question. It makes it much more inclusive to everybody. So I think that those are probably some key elements of it, but never let the question and answer period interrupt the buildup of your conclusion, because that's where your call to action is at the end of your speech.
Great. That's great information, Joe. Well, we've got a couple minutes left. What other thoughts would you care to share as we finish up this webinar today?
Well, I actually think that I would like to look at was there anything that we have promised that we would take up that we haven't from our promotion. I'm not necessarily sure if that's the case, but I think that given the fact that our audience wants to sell more and sell at a higher quality, I mean, I actually really like the idea of taking each product or service. This is I find with my clients to be almost 100% of the time a violation. When you start presenting, and maybe you're at a point where you have laid out your notes, you have an opening that attracts attention. You always want to have something, not just your boring opening, something that attracts attention and gets their interest. So you move them into the next major point. And that is that you're going through a sequence of things here with regard to major point, example, documentation, citing an authority, lots of support. It's benefits, not features. And I think that the most important thing when you're looking at selling, everybody knows when they go into a car lot, the worst salesman on that lot is somebody who's going to talk to you about all the bells and whistles of that car.
Right.
You know?
Right.
This car's got an overhead cam, blah, 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 and it's got this feature, and it's got this feature, and the prospect is going, well, what the hell does that have to do with me? So that he's saying, well, how does that benefit me? And I like these call letters. If you were to do a radio call letter thing, WIIFM, what's in it for me?
Right. Right.
So it gets the presenter very much used to focusing on the audience's needs from a benefit standpoint, not a features standpoint. And so, you know, the difference between, well, this is a part of your program, Mr. Prospect, where it really gives you the freedom to choose in the middle of your service so that you can be able to have the freedom to have an option to increase or decrease your monthly payment. Well, that's freedom. That's a benefit. You see?
Right.
You know, to say something, it comes with a something or other option, and not state the benefit of that option is kind of like mashed potatoes without the gravy. We sometimes forget to express those benefit statements. You know, and benefits could be, let's think about this. Benefits are what? Does it give me more freedom? Does it give me more security? Does it enable me to have more choices? You see, can I change my mind and still have the service? Does it give me more liquidity? Right? Look at all the benefits. Right? I think that a presenter from the preparation and organization part of this, when they're putting it together, should do this is a homework assignment for you, everyone. Okay, here's your homework assignment. I wouldn't be a coach if I didn't give you a homework assignment. Number one, write down all the benefits of your product or service. Write them down, one by one. Okay? Just write them down, every single benefit, not a feature, a benefit to them. Okay? And then when you go home or back to your office, or when you hang up on this webinar, put together an opening of your speech, several major points. Remember what we talked about in terms of problems and solutions, right? A call to action at the end, but embed, implement benefit statements into those points. And what I'd like you to do is, here's a call to action from me to you. And I'm telling you directly, okay? Email me, call me, let me look over your speech. I'd be happy to do that. I'd be happy to look over the organizational flow of your speech. I'd be happy to look over how the examples support your points with credibility. I'd be happy to work out the call to action. First thing I'd like to see is how those benefit statements have been implemented in your speech. I would like to do that for you, and that is a complimentary service. Call it another Prestige Leadership Advisor call to action.
That's a great point as well. Joe, anything else? Any last words of wisdom that you care to share just as we're wrapping things up?
Well, I think just in terms of coaching, just to give you an idea, everything I do in my coaching is personalized, and there's nothing cookie cutter about public speaking. If you present well and create the combination of mechanics and dynamics. I work with my clients to start off with mechanics, so they get down the template. They can present anywhere on any subject for any reason when they have this template, and they know how to open and and make it flow through, and then the call to action. But there's also the dynamics. How do you overcome stage fright? How do you really unleash emotion? How do you captivate your audience? How do you get them motivated so that they're on the same page as you? No matter what it is, whether it's a boardroom presentation, whether it's a staff meeting where you have to give a speech, whether it's a B&I or a networking group where you have to stand up and give either a 30 or 60-second commercial, or maybe it's your 15-minute keynote, right? Or maybe you're going to stand in front of a large amount of people in the hundreds and then the thousands, and you really have to make an impact. I mean, the key is leadership starts with becoming and being a dynamic communicator, a dynamic speaker. And speaking is so important as a core ability in leadership. The other aspects of Prestige Leader here as a company is that you do this on media. And we have a full comprehensive program that we break down into segments. We have a public speaking and effective presentation program. We have an on-camera segment program where people can learn what it takes to communicate on camera, which is a bit of a different media. And we do a lot of scenarios here in the studio, as you know. And we also have training on how to become a very effective guest or host on radio and TV. And that has a whole dynamic in itself. And so there's all the aspects of becoming prominent and becoming recognized and respected as a leader. You've got to have those elements in place. And so along with our executive coaching program and leadership development program, the main glue that holds all that together, of course, is that that leader really affects change. And that's really the purpose of what we do here as a group is we help people affect change. We help people to inspire others to take action. And there's no better way of doing that than to teach them the basics and the advanced dynamics of being a dynamic and charismatic speaker. Boy, the world needs it.
That's for sure.
You know, I mean, leadership is a very scarce commodity. Look at the world. Do we need leaders? We sure do. Do we need leaders in government? Do we need leaders in business? We need leaders in local government. We need leaders in regional and state government. We need leaders throughout the United States and the world. And our purpose, our mission statement is to create ethical, competent, and productive leaders who can make a positive impact on the world around them, and as a result, become recognized and respected for that purpose and be successful. Be successful in their own estimation, not by anybody else's. That's what we do here. So come on in, ladies and gentlemen. I'd love to have you come into our new training center here at 2600 East Bay Drive, Suite 230 in Largo, Florida. We have a very vibrant new training center here. You know me, John. I always tell people, you know what? We got great coffee and a soft chair.
That's right. We'd like to have them both come and take advantage of that. Well, great. Well, Joe, thank you very much for these tips. It is our hope, belief, and goal today to provide this information to the audience so that they can truly become a presenter that can move an audience to make a decision, to buy something, and as a result of that, to be a success in sales. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for your time, for your attention, and we'll look forward to talking to you soon.
Absolutely.